Hello, you're watching World Talks on TVP World. My name is Sasha Farbach. Europe is enduring one of the most intense heat waves in its modern history, with temperatures above 40 degrees Celsius breaking records across the continent. In Poland, the hottest day ever recorded has disrupted rail services, damaged infrastructure, and triggered severe weather warnings, offering a glimpse of the wider challenges facing Europe as economists warn that the financial cost of extreme heat is rapidly mounting. Joining us now to discuss it all further is Antoni Bielewicz, Executive Director for the EU and Governance, Central and Eastern Europe Programs, European Climate Foundation. Good to have you with us. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So this heat wave, it's still upon us very much, smashing records, as we said earlier already. Poland, new record over 40 degrees Celsius. We look at Germany, also new national records. I mean, is this just an isolated case at this point? Is this part of a regular trend that Europe has to deal with now?
You are right. Definitely, we are facing a very significant and severe heat waves right now, and probably for the first time in a longer history, it goes from the east. Unfortunately, it's not an accidental and only a temporary effect of the climate change. We might expect more and more of those heat waves, and just to give you an example, this summer is the 5th year in a row of the most heated summers in the European Union.
You're saying that this is something that we could see more of. I mean, extreme heats, even if it's just these few days, that can already have an impact that we've seen on the health sector. But also I want to ask you about infrastructure and the economy. You're looking at Poland as a case, infrastructure-wise, from rails, lots of disruptions. If we look at air conditioning, etc., is, let's say, not just Poland, but is Europe prepared in terms of the economy and infrastructure to deal with these extreme heat waves?
I'm afraid we are not prepared, and Poland is not an isolated island here. We are all catching up with the current circumstances, trying to prepare ourselves better. When it comes to the impacts of such heat waves, we can think about 3 economic dimensions that are important for citizens. First of all, unfortunately, we are talking about spiking mortality rate in cities mostly, and not only in the cities. Second of all, we can talk about infrastructure damages, because our infrastructure, road infrastructure, but also buildings, transport infrastructure is not prepared for such a long-standing heat waves taking like days and sometimes even weeks. And the third one, and probably the most interesting from the perspective of the economic growth impact of heat waves, is the significant drop in productivity that can be reflected in the GDP of every country impacted by heat waves.
And on that note, it's interesting. There's a report that was run by Allianz Trade. I think this is around May. This is just about Germany, but it said basically that these kind of heat waves could cut German GDP by around 3%. We're looking at 131 billion euros by 2030. So if we have that, just that's one report, one case. Do you see this now? Is Europe, European leader and policymakers, do they need to focus on this more? Is this heat wave, or let's say heat resilience, now part of economic policy, or it should be?
I mean, integrated EU policy targeting both climate change mitigation and adaptation, so measures taken to adapt to the new climate reality, are an important part of the EU policy for the last 20-25 years. So we are preparing for that. The problem that I see is that we are still not properly prepared for all the immediate impacts of the climate change that we are facing, and that, let's be honest, at the end of the day, we will never be prepared for spiking heat waves and significant extreme weather events that we might face in forthcoming future because of the climate change. We are talking about really impactful events, and we are talking about really difficult trends that might influence economy, growth, agriculture sector, or energy sector. Let's not forget that we are still producing our electricity from fossil fuels, and that generation from fossil fuels requires significant amount of water, and water is actually one of those elements, one of those measures that are the most impacted by heat waves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you mentioned water, and I think this is the other great concern here as well. We're looking at also what happened just last summer here in Poland, the Vistula, the major river running through Warsaw. I mean, one of the lowest levels, I think around 3 or 4 centimeters, historic lows on that level. If we look around Europe, the water shortages, is that the next strategic challenge for Europe, and how do we overcome that one?
Definitely, this is one of the major challenges that we face, and unfortunately, one of those complex challenges that you can't address by direct, quick investments. We are talking about the change in the way that the water is consumed. We are talking about the change in the way that the water is managed across the land. So we are talking about retention of water. We are talking about leaving more of a space for natural ad hoc resources of water to be formed, to be created by severe heavy rainfalls, and we are talking, of course, about some changes in the most important industrial processes that we are talking about. I'm referring here to the energy sector, because the energy sector is one of the largest consumers of water, and that is right now facing very significant problems thanks to the because of the water shortages.
Yeah, and exactly on that note as well, how much is this heat wave then tied, as you said, water consumption, but also water for energy production? So the next challenge here is how at risk are we from, let's say, blackouts or anything like this, maybe not just in Poland, but across Europe? Is that another potential threat here?
I wouldn't be afraid of a massive blackout, but we've already hearing about some electricity shortages in Western European countries. It's great that for the last 10 or 15 years we are investing a lot in renewable energy sources, which are actually producing and generating electricity when the heat waves are in place. This is very important measure to tackle and to mitigate the potential impact of the heat waves. So I wouldn't expect a massive blackout, but probably if we will not address this challenge in a more serious and significant way, maybe in 2 or 3 years from now we might face some electricity shortages and power shortages also in our country.
Mm-hmm. And then also, maybe it goes without saying, but with extreme heats, if we're looking at the agricultural sector, I mean, this is also big business. This is also really critical for Europeans. How vulnerable is the agricultural sector, not just here in Poland, but across Europe when heat waves like these strike?
Unfortunately, the impact of heat waves on agriculture are massive, and we are talking about like 20 to 30% of decrease in production of important oils, soils, important products, organic products by the agriculture sector. So definitely these heat waves will impact the agriculture market this year already.
Mm-hmm. And one final takeaway, if we're looking at the heat waves now, I mean, this has caused disruption on multiple levels across many countries and cities here in Europe. But what's your main takeaway from this, if you could give citizens and policymakers one bit of advice?
I would probably suggest to focus more on immediate measures immediate measures that are within our reach, within the reach of our decision makers. So preparing ourselves for to support our citizens, our residents in the city with air-conditioned spaces. Like we can open banks, we can open civic centers, we can open even schools for people that are exposed to severe heat. We will, of course, have to also think about much more careful usage of water. That would be the second suggestion. So let's think about the air-conditioned areas in residential areas or spaces in residential areas, and let's think about the way we consume water every day and how we use water every day. That would be the immediate answer.
Well, that's the immediate one, and I think that there'll be many more. An issue which, pardon the pun, will remain a hot topic for most Europeans as we go forward through the next few years. Thank you so much for that, Antoni Bielewicz there from the European Climate Foundation. Thank you. And thank you for watching. That concludes World Talks, but do stay right here on TVP World for more news and commentary. Goodbye.